Every morning, you lock your front door to protect your family from the outside world. You check the deadbolt, you pull the handle, you make sure it's, totally secure.
Right. It's just instinct at this point.
Yeah, exactly. But what if the greatest threat to your survival isn't actually waiting out there in the world? What if the greatest threat is the exact sequence of mundane steps you take before you even turn the key in your car?
Oh, it is a really jarring thought.
Yeah,
I mean, we rely so heavily on the comfort of our daily routines.
we really do.
We assume that, well, because we backed out of the driveway and made it to work safely yesterday, that repeating those exact same physical motions will automatically keep us safe today. We operate entirely on autopilot.
And that autopilot is exactly what we are dismantling today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Our mission for this session is highly specific. We are zeroing in exclusively on Chapter 9 of Syed Abdul Hakim's book, HarGhar Se EkSainik. We are extracting the practical, everyday anchors that take the abstract idea of road safety and turn it into a deeply ingrained physical habit.
What is so compelling about this specific chapter is this concept of the sainik, which roughly translates to a protector or a soldier of the road.
But not in a Hollywood action movie kind of way, right?
No, not at all. This isn't about grand heroism. It's not about diving in front of moving traffic. The chapter shrinks this massive, intimidating problem of road fatalities down to the footprint of a single person in a single hallway.
Wow, just one hallway.
Yeah. It focuses on the quiet, incredibly unglamorous routines that transform the safety of a home and eventually ripple out to protect an entire community.
So by the time we wrap up this deep dive, you are going to have a fundamentally different perspective on things you probably haven't thought twice about.
Absolutely.
Things like where you leave your keys, how you sit in the passenger seat of a friend's car, and what to actually say when someone reaches for their keys at the end of a party.
We really need to start by stripping away the illusion that safe driving is about making good moral choices in the heat of the moment.
Like relying on willpower.
Exactly. We like to think that if a dangerous situation arises, our reflexes and our judgment will just magically save us. But the reality is, safety is engineered before the engine even turns over.
So let's look at the physical architecture of that engineering, starting right at your front door. The chapter introduces this idea that habit begins with something as absurdly simple as, well, a hook on the wall?
The helmet hook, yes.
Right.
For a scenic, the helmet cannot live in a closet down the hall or, shoved in the bedroom somewhere.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Right. It must live on a hook immediately beside the front door, positioned so that reaching for it requires the exact same amount of physical effort as reaching for your keys.
Which completely bypasses the brain's tendency to negotiate.
Oh, 100%.
Because if your helmet is in the other room and you are just running a 5-minute errand to the market, your brain starts doing the math. You think, is it really worth taking off my shoes, walking back across the rug, and digging it out of the closet just for a quick trip?
And our brains are inherently lazy.
So true.
They are biologically designed to conserve energy. If there is friction in the environment, we will inevitably choose the path of least resistance.
Always.
So by placing the helmet right next to the door, you eliminate that cognitive debate entirely. Grabbing it becomes an involuntary part of the departure sequence. Keys, phone, helmet. You don't have to summon the willpower to decide to wear it. Your environment is physically handing it to you.
It is the exact same behavioral science as setting up your gym clothes the night before.
Yes. It's a perfect comparison.
You put your running shoes right next to the bed, so you literally have to trip over them when your alarm goes off at 6 in the morning. You aren't relying on a fresh burst of motivation when you are exhausted and groggy.
Right, because that motivation isn't going to be there.
Exactly. You are just removing the friction. You make the safest choice, the absolute laziest choice available.
And building on that concept of friction, we really have to look at the smartphone. The routine of the Thanik dictates that the phone goes into a bag before the engine even starts.
Before, not during.
Right, before. It is moved completely out of sight and out of physical reach.
Because, if it is sitting on the passenger seat or just resting in the cup holder, the game is already lost.
It really is. The habit of reaching for a buzzing screen is so deeply neurologically ingrained in us now. It is faster and older than your conscious realization that looking away from the road at 60 kilometers an hour is a lethal risk.
It's just an automatic twitch.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Every notification is a dopamine trigger. And the road does not negotiate with your reaction time. It certainly can't wait for you to finish typing a text message.
Yeah, the tree doesn't care that you are just sending a quick emoji.
Exactly. But If the phone is zipped away in a bag in the back seat, the physical friction of reaching for it protects you from your own impulses. You literally can't get to it easily.
That makes so much sense. And the same logic applies to the seatbelt, right? Fastening it happens before the engine starts, no matter how short the trip is.
Yes, always before.
It isn't treated as this legal compliance thing where you only buckle up because you might see a traffic cop on the highway.
Right, it becomes a fundamental step of entering the vehicle. Think about closing your car door. You would never put your car in drive and cruise down the street with your door swinging wide open.
No, that would feel insane.
Right, it would feel physically wrong. And driving without a seatbelt needs to feel physically incomplete in that exact same visceral way.
Okay, so we've engineered the physical space inside the car. But what about the cognitive space? There is this fascinating concept in Chapter 9 called the 2-second pause.
Well, this is one of my favorite parts.
So before a Sainik pulls out of the driveway and merges into traffic, they stop and take a deliberate, conscious 2-second pause. They scan the mirrors. They actively look at the road, the pedestrians, the bicycles.
Yes. That pause is the psychological bridge between the private world of your home and the shared world of the road.
Because we're usually still in our own heads.
Exactly. When you walk out of your house, your brain is still processing domestic tasks. You know, what you need to buy at the store, an argument you had at breakfast, the meeting you were already late for. You are in an autonomic routine.
You're practically sleepwalking.
Right. So that 2-second pause forces a mental gear shift. It forces your brain to actively register that the shapes moving around your car are living, breathing human beings. You are entering a shared space, and you must do it consciously, not reflexively.
And speaking of registering human life, there is an incredibly grounding detail in the book for two-wheeler riders. When a parent is riding a motorcycle or a scooter with their child seated behind them, the child's arms wrap around their waist.
Yes, the physical grip.
It's not just a metaphor for responsibility, it is a physical sensory anchor.
It grounds the abstract statistics of road safety into something deeply tangible. Every time that rider considers weaving aggressively through traffic or running a yellow light or glancing at a phone, they physically feel the grip of the person depending on them.
Wow.
They are literally carrying the weight of that survival on their back. It is a constant sensory reminder that their choices are not happening in a vacuum.
So, okay. We have effectively child-proofed our own lazy brains for the morning commute. We've set up the hooks, we've buried the phone in the back seat, we've mastered our solo habits.
We're doing great so far.
But all of that careful preparation kind of goes out the window the second you hand the keys to someone else. How does a Sainik operate when they aren't the one in control of the vehicle?
This is where the dynamic gets really interesting. The passenger seat is fundamentally the most underused safety feature in any vehicle.
Which sounds completely counterintuitive to most people. I mean, when you are the passenger, you are just cargo. You don't have a steering wheel. You don't have pedals. You literally have zero control over the machine.
You don't control the machine, but you absolutely control the social environment operating that machine.
Oh, that's a good distinction.
We are conditioned by society to be polite guests. If you are sitting in your friend's car and they start speeding or tailgating or scrolling through a playlist while driving, your instinct is to just stay quiet.
Right. We would rather risk a high-speed collision than risk a moment of awkward social friction.
Because speaking up feels rude.
Exactly.
But in the enclosed space of a moving vehicle, silence is not neutrality. Silence is a co-signature on the driver's carelessness.
A co-signature. Wow.
If your friend picks up their phone and you say nothing, you have implicitly communicated to them that you are comfortable with the risk they are taking with your life.
Okay, I hear that. But let's be real here for a second. Nobody wants to be the annoying backseat driver.
Of course not.
If I am on a long road trip with a buddy and I suddenly lean over and say, hey, your driving is terrifying, put the phone down immediately, I am going to completely ruin the vibe of the trip.
You are.
They're going to get instantly defensive, their ego will flare up, and it's going to be so tense for the next 3 hours. How do you actually intervene without blowing up the relationship?
That is the genius of the Sainik's approach. It is entirely about reframing the moment. You do not attack the driver's skill or their character.
So no accusations?
Right. You pivot the dynamic from a critique into a team effort to arrive safely. It is all about the specific language you deploy.
Give me an example. What is the actual script here?
Well, if the driver reaches for their phone to check a map or read a text, you don't scold them. You simply reach out and say, let me handle that phone for you.
Oh, It's an offer of assistance, not a reprimand.
Precisely. You take the dangerous object out of their hands while framing it as a favor.
That's incredibly smooth.
And if they're rushing a gap in heavy traffic or driving aggressively, you don't say you're driving like a maniac. You say, I'd feel much better if we waited for that gap instead of rushing.
I'd feel better. That is a brilliant linguistic trick. You are taking total ownership of the discomfort.
Yes.
You aren't accusing them of being a bad driver. You are just expressing your own unease, which makes it very, very hard for them to get defensive.
You are using the inherent influence of the passenger seat to protect everyone inside the car, but you're doing it without triggering an ego battle.
Okay, so taking that idea of social tension, let's escalate it to the ultimate test of peer pressure. It is one thing to ask a sober friend to slow down on a road trip. It is an entirely different universe to intervene at the end of a party when someone has been drinking.
The drunk driving intervention is probably the highest stakes social moment most of us will ever face. The scene is almost always the same. The gathering is winding down. Everyone is having a good time. And a friend who has clearly had too much to drink pulls their car keys out of their pocket.
The group dynamic in that specific second is incredibly powerful. Everyone sees it, but a heavy silence just falls over the room.
Right, the rationalization starts.
You start doing the internal mental gymnastics. You think, well, they only live 10 minutes away. Or they drive home like this last month and it was fine. Or, my personal favorite, someone else closer to them will say something. I don't want to be the one to kill the mood.
On that frozen moment, silence is the easiest choice to make. And it is the deadliest. A scenic breaks that spell immediately.
Oh.
Well, they don't do it by stepping onto a soapbox and giving a moral lecture about the dangers of drunk driving. A drunk person is not going to respond to logic or statistics.
It's exactly like hitting the emergency stop button on an escalator.
Ooh, I like that analogy.
Yeah, like if you see someone's shoelace caught in the gears at the bottom, you don't call a committee meeting. You don't debate the mechanics of the escalator, you just smash the big red button. Yes, it's jarring. People stumble, they glare at you because you disrupted their commute.
Right.
But you trade 10 seconds of profound awkwardness for a lifetime of not having a preventable tragedy on your conscience.
That is a perfect way to look at it. You are disrupting the social flow to save a life. You prioritize action over debate. The language deployed here is direct and highly practical. You do not ask, are you sure you're okay to drive?
Because they'll just say yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That invites a negotiation where they will inevitably say yes. Instead, you say, I will book you a cab right now.
Yeah.
Or, leave the car here, I'm giving you a lift.
It is a statement of fact. You are completely removing the option.
And if they resist, which they often will because alcohol lowers inhibitions and inflates confidence, you make a direct personal appeal.
Yeah.
The phrase used in the book is, I see what you're about to do, and because I care about you, I'm asking you to stop.
Wow. I see what you're doing, and because I care about you, I am asking you to stop. That completely disarms the situation.
It introduces a critical piece of emotional data into the room. This action is visible to someone who genuinely values their life. It reframes you from being an annoying obstacle standing between them and their bed into a facilitator ensuring they actually survive the night.
It cuts right through the ego defense.
Yes, it appeals directly to the relationship.
So, we have spent a lot of time in physical spaces. The front door, the passenger seat, the living room at the end of a party. But road culture isn't just physical anymore. It is heavily shaped by the screens in our pockets. This brings us to the concept of the digital battlefield and the role of the digital scenic.
Road culture exists simultaneously in physical reality and in the digital echo chamber. We constantly see reels and videos on social media glorifying dangerous behavior.
Oh, all the time.
Someone weaving through heavy highway traffic at absurd speeds or pulling a stunt on a crowded street. And when you look at the comment section of those videos, it is almost always flooded with fire emojis, applause, and people tagging their friends.
Which creates a massive illusion of consensus. It tells the algorithm to push the video to more people, but more dangerously, it tells young drivers that this reckless behavior is not only acceptable, it is actively celebrated. It looks like everyone agrees that risking lives is cool.
The bystander effect is actually magnified online. You might watch that video and feel a knot in your stomach. You know it's wrong. You know it could kill a family.
But you see 500 fire emojis.
Right, and you doubt yourself. You think, well, maybe I'm just being overly sensitive. So you keep scrolling in silence. The digital scenic's job is to disrupt that illusion. And it doesn't require a long, boring lecture in the comments. It requires precision.
Just a single drop of reality to break the algorithm's spell.
Exactly. You leave a simple, honest comment. Watching this made me uncomfortable.
Just that. Watching this made me uncomfortable.
That is literally all it takes, because that one public comment shatters the monolith of approval. It introduces the reality that this behavior is genuinely concerning.
It breaks the echo chamber.
And more importantly, it gives quiet psychological permission to the hundreds of other people scrolling past who felt that exact same knot in their stomach but were too intimidated by the mob to say anything. You act as a mirror to the reality of the danger.
That concept of acting as a mirror perfectly transitions into how we process the aftermath of real-world tragedies, too. We've all been in that situation where traffic suddenly slows to a crawl on the highway, and as you creep forward, you see the flashing lights of an accident.
The human instinct in that moment is to look outward. People gawk, they take photos, they ask, "Look at that damage, I wonder whose fault it was."
It is a morbid curiosity.
It is. We treat the accident as a piece of external news, something terrible that happened to someone else, completely divorced from our own reality.
We distance ourselves from it to protect our own sense of security.
But the Sainik protocol is to look inward. When they see the flashing lights, they do not ask whose fault it is. They ask themselves one fundamental question: what will I change now?
What will I change now? That's powerful.
They use the tragedy as an unignorable, flashing warning about their own vulnerability. They ask, what habit am I currently practicing that could lead me to that exact same twisted metal? What risk will I set aside today? The event stops being an external spectacle and becomes a deeply personal lesson.
There is a story in Chapter 9 that drives this home perfectly. The story of the businessman.
It completely encapsulates this inward shift. The text details a businessman who attended a meeting where these concepts of HarGhar Se EkSainik were being discussed. For years, this man had traveled 60 kilometers every single day on a busy highway, surrounded by heavy trucks and unpredictable traffic, riding his two-wheeler completely without a helmet.
60 kilometers a day, every single day, just rolling the dice.
He had totally normalized the risk.
Yeah.
But during the session, a very simple question was posed. If something happens to me while traveling, what happens to my family?
Simple but devastating.
That question bypassed his logical defenses and hit the part of him where his family already lived in silent, constant worry. He internalized the warning. He looked inward and realized the devastation his daily habit could cause. And he announced, from today, I am wearing a helmet.
He didn't wait to be fined by a traffic cop. He didn't wait to be involved in a near miss or a tragic crash. He simply asked the right question, acted as his own mirror, and changed his behavior the very next morning.
That's at the core of it.
It really makes you wonder, what is the seemingly harmless habit that you, the listener, are performing right now? What have you just accepted as normal, but would absolutely devastate your family if your luck finally ran out?
That is the core mechanism of how one home changes many. It is not about waiting for grand legislation. It isn't about waiting for city planners to design safer roads. It is about an individual internalizing their own vulnerability, taking responsibility for their daily habits, and letting that quiet consistency become visible to the people around them.
We have covered a tremendous amount of ground navigating Chapter 9 today. We started at the front door, looking at the behavioral science of engineering a safe morning departure.
Right, the hooks and the friction.
We talked about why the helmet goes on the hook, why the phone gets buried in the bag to defeat our dopamine loops, and why fastening the seatbelt must feel as automatic as closing the car door.
And then we explored the hidden power of the passenger seat, moving past the social conditioning of polite silence and learning to use language like, I'd feel better, to protect everyone in the vehicle.
We stepped into that incredibly tense social moment at the end of a party, treating a drunk friend reaching for their keys like an escalator emergency button, choosing to disrupt the flow and offer practical, undeniable action over debate. And finally, we looked at how to shatter the digital illusion of consensus online and how to process the tragedies we see on the road by looking inward and asking what we need to change.
The unifying thread woven through all of these practical anchors is that being a Sainik is, well, remarkably ordinary. It does not require a uniform or a title or a heroic act that ends up on the evening news.
It is just the unglamorous, quiet, stubborn repetition of daily decisions. It is choosing every single morning to prioritize survival over convenience.
Yeah.
It is the realization that the road is not a place where we are anonymous pods moving from point A to point B. It is an intensely shared space where our tiny, seemingly private choices hold the literal weight of someone else's life.
It is the daily, relentless practice of character over compliance.
I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Think back to the last time you were in a car where the driver did something slightly unsafe. Maybe they picked up their phone to check a notification while coasting toward a crosswalk. Maybe they aggressively sped up to catch a yellow light that was very clearly turning red.
We've all seen it happen.
You felt that spike of adrenaline, you noticed it, and you probably stayed completely silent.
Almost all of us do. The social pressure to remain quiet is immense.
So here is your challenge for today. What is the exact, friendly, 5-word sentence you can write down and rehearse right now so that the next time you feel that knot in your stomach, you are fully prepared to speak up?
It could be anything simple.
Maybe it's, let me text them back. Maybe it's, no rush, we have time. Find your 5 words, rehearse them in your head until they become reflex. Because tomorrow morning, when you grab your keys and lock that front door behind you, you aren't just stepping into a routine, you are stepping into a shared world, and you have the power to protect it.